Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Today is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. As we speak, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker is going on his 23rd consecutive hour, speaking live on the floor of the United States Senate. He is laying out how the corrupt, thuggish Donald Trump administration is treating Americans. We will go live to the Senate to show you as he is close to breaking the long time record held by Senator Strom Thurmond, the racist who filibustered a civil rights bill in 1957. Lots we're going to be talking about on today's show, folks, including massive layoffs taking place in the Department of Health and Human Services. We'll continue to show you how Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge, how they are mistreating Americans. We're even going to show you a video, folks, of a United States senator from Indiana being completely dismissive of a fired worker, and he literally said the worker actually deserved getting fired. Yeah. Also, folks, on today's show, big election taking place in Florida. 2 special elections. Republicans are scared to death, hoping they can hold on to those seats because they hold a 3-vote majority. Speaking of the House, Republicans lost a vote when it comes to the rules. They pretty much have done for the rest of the week because they can't get the act together in their own party, allowing women who are pregnant, who have babies, to be able to vote in Congress. I know it's stupid, it's crazy. Then we're going to show you the racist ex-husband of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. No shot. Here's how racist he is, how he attacked Muslim women for praying in a parking lot, just minding their own business. And this racist just comes along and opens his big mouth. Also, folks, big election a week from now in St. Louis. Well, will incumbent Mayor Tashara Jones, the first black female mayor of St. Louis, get reelected? We'll talk to a grassroots leader who is trying to rally the black vote. It is time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. On the Black Star Network, let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the mess, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling.
Folks, we're going to go live right now to the United States Senate, where New Jersey Senator Cory Booker is speaking. He has been speaking since 7 p.m. on yesterday, taking very few breaks, laying out, in his opinion, why the Donald Trump administration is destroying America as we know it. Let's hear from Senator Cory Booker.
Then Donald Trump became president, and we're a lot less interested in deficits as a party. We don't care at this point. And here's a guy I've mentioned numerous times, Thomas Massie, a Republican member of the House, said earlier this year about Republicans, we have no plan whatsoever to balance the budget other than growth. But what they're proposing is going to make deficits worse. This is what our president is trying to do with the complicity of a lot of people who call themselves deficit hawks, who call themselves fiscal conservatives. They're going to try to blow it through here, gaming the system, creating some kind of scam to obscure the real cost of this, when we all know, them on the Republican side, us on the Democratic side, we all know the truth about these tax increases and what they're going to do, how much they're going to cost. But we're going to play a game, it looks like, here, unless more Americans speak up. Republican and Democrat, people who know numbers, who know what we're doing to future generations in this country. This is wrong, and I say again, this is not right or left. It is right or wrong. This is a moral moment in America. What are we going to do? I'm so glad my friend, the senator from Hawaii, is here. I try to keep M&Ms in my desk occasionally if she wants to partake of New Jersey's state product. The M&M was invented in Newark. Truth? Get great trivia here. I'm waiting for the senator from Hawaii, my dear friend, to ask me a question, because I have the floor.
Will the senator yield to a question?
I will yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned M&Ms. Both of us are lawyers, and I remember I got through the studying for the bar exam by eating mounds and mounds of M&Ms. So I thank you, the senator from New Jersey, for continuing to provide me with M&Ms. I want to thank you, Senator Booker, for standing here for hours on end to push back, to fight against this administration's lawlessness. And in fact, a reporter asked me today, do you think this is a good use by Senator Booker of his time to be on the floor to do this? And I said, anytime any of us gets up and use our voices to counter, to fight against the lawlessness of this administration, it is a good use of our time. So thank you, Senator Booker, for yielding to me and for standing up to the American people. And is it making a difference? Millions of people are watching you, Senator Booker. Millions have watched and are watching you. It's making a difference. So I want to ask you a question about the lawlessness of this administration. As you yourself said last night, quote, these are not normal times in our nation, end quote. In fact, these are the very words that I often use when I meet with anybody who comes to see me from Hawaii, individuals, organizations. I say, these are not normal times. So Donald Trump has made no secret of the fact that he fancies himself a king with total disregard for the rule of law. And from day one, he and his administration have taken one illegal action after another. On his first day in office, Donald Trump issued an executive order purporting to end birthright citizenship, a right protected in our Constitution for more than a century. Birthright citizenship. He tried to unilaterally freeze federal funding for everything from cancer research to disaster aid, funding that had already been appropriated by Congress and that the executive branch is required by law to spend. It is not as though it's up to the president to decide what programs he's going to release money for. Congress already made that determination. By law, he is supposed to expend these funds. But again, he thinks he's the king. He can do whatever he wants. So he's put a freeze on these funds. He's enabled Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire, the richest person in the world, whose only qualification is the more than $200 million he spent to get Trump elected, to run roughshod through our government. Together, they've attempted to shutter USAID and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, just for two examples. This Consumer Protection Bureau, which has returned more than $21 billion to consumers through its enforcement actions. $21 billion going to our consumers. And apparently King Trump can't stand that, and neither can Elon Musk. These are agencies that do critical work at home and abroad and represent just a minuscule part of the federal budget, but this doesn't stop either Trump or Musk from going after these programs. And Musk's so-called Doge team has gained access to sensitive databases and payment systems across our government containing the personal information of millions of Americans. So he has access to the Treasury Department database, all our Social Security numbers, our tax payments, all of that. He is running roughshod until stopped by a court on these databases. And they've done all this without any transparency or accountability whatsoever, meaning we still don't know the full extent of where Doge has been or what they've done. Trump has launched an all-out assault on our federal workforce. He attempted to fire tens of thousands, he actually fired them, who are on probationary status overnight, and only for courts to order them, these thousands and thousands of federal employees in probationary status, to be reinstated weeks later. Talk about chaos, talk about sowing fear. So now he's attempting to reclassify whole swaths of federal employees to strip them of civil service protections and in some cases eliminate their ability to bargain collectively. He fired Department of Justice and FBI officers for seemingly no other reason than their involvement in January 6 cases. Cases they were assigned to as rank and file officials, not as though these people at DOJ and FBI had a choice in the kind of cases they were going to be assigned. They were assigned January 6 cases, and the names of these people, there's some 6,000 FBI and DOJ employees who worked on January 6 cases, and there's a fear that those names would be disclosed. He's going after schools, from kindergartners to universities, as part of his war on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are many examples of the kind of government overreach that they are exercising through their effort to ferret out what they call diversity, equity, and inclusion, which actually, that is a positive. Don't we want to be inclusive? So I want to give you just one example. There was a teacher in Idaho who had a poster in her classroom that said, "Everyone is welcome here." And there were handprints, different colors, white, black, yellow, handprints. And she was told she had to take this poster down, and that if the handprints were all white handprints, she could have kept the poster up, but she was told she had to take this poster in her classroom that says, "Everyone is welcome here." She took it down at first, but she felt so bad about it that she put it back up, and then she was told by the powers that be at her school that she had a certain amount of time to take this poster down, and otherwise there will be disciplinary action. That is the kind of government overreach that is a hallmark of this administration. To date, the Trump administration has withheld millions of dollars from hand-picked colleges and universities, conditioning the funding on unreasonable demands meant to bring these colleges to their knees. So he's starting with Harvard, Columbia, there's probably a whole long list of colleges that he's threatened to withdraw hundreds of millions of dollars from. They've slashed funding or staffing at the Department of Education. In fact, they would like to dismantle the Department of Education, which is responsible for administering billions in funding for low-income students, students with disabilities, and something as critical as school lunch for kids. Every single state in our country relies on the funding they receive from the U.S. Department of Education. In Hawaii, we're talking about some $300 million in funding for our schools to help our kids with disabilities, to provide school lunches through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the things that I mentioned. And as Senator Booker knows well, the list goes on and on. This administration continues to abuse its power, acting with total disregard for the rule of law. And we have turned to the courts to stop these illegal acts. And now Republicans are calling to impeach these judges who are applying the law, who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and not just giving Trump whatever results he wants, but these judges are now deemed open to impeachment. It's clear Trump and his cronies will keep on doing whatever they want, regardless of the Constitution or the law. They are crippling government and sowing total chaos across our country while doing nothing to address the actual issues people care about. I know my colleague from New Jersey is just as concerned about lawlessness as I am. We both sit on the Judiciary Committee. We know how important adherence to the rule of law is. And in fact, I have said many times that it's the rule of law that separates the democracy from all other forms of government. And we now have a president who does not think that the rule of law applies to him. WTF comes to mind. So, Senator Booker, my question to you is, what are the consequences of this total lawlessness on our government, our country, and the American people?
Thank you, Senator Hirono. I think I need somebody to say what WTF, and to come from you is particularly precious and great. I'm grateful. And this rule of law is really important. It's part of this whole moment in American history that I keep calling a moral moment, something beyond the normal, where we shouldn't respond in a normal fashion. This is a moment where judges rule in his favor, and he praises them. They just don't rule for him. He drags them and threatens them, so much so that Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has to tell them to back up. When elected officials speak up, many of them fear what the consequences would be for them or their reelection if they speak against him. Lawyers decline, possibly, to represent people because they're worried that this president has already showed that if you represent the wrong people or represent, God forbid, people against him, he's going to try to shut down your law firm in ways that are against the rules of law that this country believes in. Journalists and media organizations, they don't report in a way that he likes or confirm his arbitrary name changes of the Gulf of Mexico. There's a punishment that he dishes out to try to make them succumb to submission. State and local governments literally could get extorted for their funding if they don't carry out his demands. Schools and universities who are starving for dollars, trying to invest them in research and science that will propel humanity to new heights, well, they could get targeted by this president if you don't do what he says. It feels like his ultimate goal is to create a country where you cannot trust the outcome of elections that he loses, because he's going to tell you if he lost that election, it's the big lie. It's wrong. I won. I don't care what judge after judge, court after court says. I won. And if you don't believe me, if you don't say that the election I won, well, there'll be consequences for that too. This is a president who, even as we've read, people on both sides of the aisle isn't respecting the Constitution, the separation of powers, isn't respecting the rights that we hold precious, isn't honoring what you call the rule of law. I want to go a little bit into this for a second. Let's talk about the separation of powers. There's many, many different cases right now. But we know that James Madison, the founding father who devised the basic framework of our Constitution, devoted some of the Federalist Papers to the ways the Constitution addresses the danger of concentrating too much power in one person or one branch of government. Written in 1788, Madison's words still have resonance today. This is what he wrote in Federalist 487. The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. So what is this president trying to do? He's trying to jam any court decision that's not in his favor, and either the judge is corrupt and should be impeached, or he's just going to deny the ruling or not follow it. Madison explained that the Constitution set up the executive, legislative, and judiciary branches to be separate and distinct and equal and bound together by checks and balances. Quote, it is agreed on all sides that the powers properly belonging to one of the branches ought not to be directly and completely administered by either of the other branches. It is equally evident that none of them ought to possess directly or indirectly an overruling influence over the others in the administration of their executive respective powers. That's Federalist 48. I'm nerdy enough to have a favorite Federalist paper. I'm going to read from my favorite one, Federalist 51. In order to lay a due foundation for the separate and distinct exercise of the different powers of government essential to the preservation of liberty, it is evident that each department should have a will of its own, so constituted that each should have as little agency as possible in the appointment of the members of the others. But the great security against a gradual concentration of the several powers in the same department consists in giving to those who administer each department the necessary constitutional means to resist the encroachments of the others. To resist the encroachments of the others. We're not doing that in the Senate or in the House. It may, Federalist 51 continues, it may be a reflection on human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. And here's the quote, folks. Here's the quote from our founders. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. But our president is no angel. In framing a government, this is 51 continuing, in framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the government, and in the next place oblige it to control itself. They are talking about at great length our founders and the separation of powers and the checks and balances of these institutions, and yet for 72 days of this administration has the Congress, Article 1, the People's House, the Senate, the deliberative body, have we once held this president to account? The most powerful man in the world and the richest man in the world have taken a battle axe to the Veterans Association, a battle axe to the Department of Education, a battle axe to the only agency solely focused on protecting consumers against big banks and other factors that might abuse them, bringing it down. Congress established the Department of Education. Congress established the Consumer Finance Bureau. Congress. But the president doesn't care. He's going to push as hard as he can against the principles of our founders. And what will we do in this body? What will we do in the House of Representatives? Right now, the answer is nothing. Has Elon Musk, the unelected, un-Senate confirmed, billionaire, #1 campaign contributor of Donald Trump, who has admitted he's made mistakes. Heck, his website, he keeps taking down the mistakes, keeps getting called out from them, fires people from the FAA, then begs them to come back, fires the people that protect us from nuclear accidents. Oh, wait, come back. Has we ever in the Senate or the House called him in for one oversight hearing to account for what he's doing, to address the fears of a nation? No. Separation of powers. Hey, we have hearings here all the time, but not Elon Musk. You know why? You know why I think why? Tell me I'm a conspiracy theorist. Because what Elon Musk is doing to some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle is threatening them. Threatening to run primaries with what to me would be a quarter, but to him is $100 million. I'm going to drop $100 million against you in a primary if you step out of line. Or if you dare to say Hegseth is not qualified to be the Secretary of Defense, we're going to drag you through X. We're going to awaken a mob to threaten you. Our founders spoke so eloquently to protect against that kind of corruption, to protect against that kind of egregious tyrannical power that says, only I can save this country. Give me all power. Let me be the strong man. And we know who he respects on the global stage. I was stunned. I thought it was a joke during the election when he said his favorite leader is Viktor Orban, whose rolled back democratic principles, whose concentrated power. I see, who does he choose to call a dictator? The man who is trying desperately to lead his country in defense against the authoritarian dictator and preserve his democracy? Or does he call the dictator a dictator? No. Simple test. Most high school students would simply pass it, but no, he calls a hero a dictator. Do we have any conversations about that in an informal capacity? To talk about the Ukrainian war, which I know people on both sides of the aisle. Mazie Hirono brings up the separation of powers. Why is history's lesson so relevant today? Why do we study history? Why did I learn that in high school, that you study history so you don't repeat the mistakes of the past? You study history to gain inspiration and insight and courage against tough times. You study history to be inspired by heroes who stood up against despots, who sacrificed themselves. What is the lesson in history? How is it relevant to us today? Because the separation of powers between the branches of government has allowed our democracy to thrive for nearly 250 years. And now we have a person in power that's barely being checked. And if the courts check him, what he does to the courts? In the 9 weeks or 10 weeks since Donald Trump was inaugurated, there have been more than 140 federal lawsuits filed challenging his actions. I don't know if another president has, in my lifetime, ever has had 140 federal lawsuits in about 9 weeks. It's a staggering figure. We should consider it a staggering figure. He must be the most sued president in U.S. history. Somebody should fact check that. But at least in my lifetime, I don't remember Reagan, don't remember Bush, don't remember Obama or Clinton or Biden being dragged into court in the first 9 weeks so many times and losing case after case. He may have a record for the most lawsuits filed by a president himself, because he's a guy that says he loves to sue folks. In support of the big lie, he did so many lawsuits and lost them all. The lawsuits against Trump and his administration are not frivolous. Federal judges appointed by Republican presidents and Democratic presidents alike have found Trump's executive actions illegal, temporarily pausing many of them too. Trump's executive actions and the outcomes of these lawsuits have a direct effect on Americans. These lawsuits challenge Trump. Here are some of the examples, folks. And I'm wondering where the American people stand on these lawsuits, not the people who are blindly loyal to him because they believe the lies that he so artfully, creatively, and convincingly tells, but just tell me, where do you stand on these issues? Attacks on veterans who have served our country in the military and civil services. Well, there are lawsuits challenging his right to attack our veterans. There's lawsuits challenging Trump on his attacks on government agencies that protect your grandmother from online scams. I don't know where you stand with the grandmas getting scammed, to defend them, or the president. Lawsuits against Trump because of his attacks on lawful American citizens born in this country and guaranteed their citizenship under the U.S. Constitution. There are lawsuits against the president for withholding National Institute of Health funds that support studies of horrific diseases like Alzheimer's and disrupting life-saving medical research and ongoing clinical trials. Now, if you're a student of history, this is the problem often with lawsuits. Brown versus Board of Education, we celebrated as this wonderful case. It was. But was it obeyed? No, it wasn't. I have a picture of Ruby Bridges in my office because it wasn't obeyed. The court didn't declare this, and suddenly everybody said, hey, let black folk go to school with white folks. No, the president had to call in the National Guard to escort a little girl into a class. That's the problem with lawsuits, is you have a defiant executive leadership, they'll defy them. These, where you stand? Do you stand with veterans? Do you stand with your grandmothers against online scams? Do you stand with American citizens born in this country? Do you stand with withholding National Institute of Health funding? It was clearly that. We know the majority of Americans are with that, but people are having to bring him to court to fight on these issues. So many cases being done, so many cases I have here before me, so many cases. I could read them all, but you all know many of them. They're done in the press as he pushes, as Elon Musk push. They push the bounds of the authorities of the Constitution of the United States, and people are bringing lawsuits. But that is not enough. Martin Luther King didn't step down because of Thurgood Marshall's legal work. John Lewis didn't step down. Ella Baker didn't stop. Abraham Joshua Heschel didn't stop. The great Rabbi Joachim Prince didn't stop. The people of the United States of America, more powerful than courts, the people of the United States of America, more powerful than the Constitution. I just said something controversial, so let me defend myself. I believe in the people. I believe in the words of the great learned hand. He said the like of what I just said, so let me read somebody far greater, far more vaunted than this senator from New Jersey. Learned Hand serves as a federal judge from 1909 to 1951. He was nicknamed the 10th Justice of the Supreme Court for his many influential decisions. And he wrote this speech about our Constitution, about our liberties, about the tyrants in every generation who have tried to subvert our democracy. Some of them from this body, like the Red Scare that had so many Americans being unjustly fired, unjustly deported, unjustly jailed, that infringed on freedom of speech, freedom of expression. I'm sorry, every generation of Americans have seen demagogues rise to try to undermine what American stands for. And Learned Hand knew that. He had so much wisdom about our Constitution. We are gathered here to affirm a faith in a common purpose, a common conviction, a common devotion. Some of us have chosen America as the land of our adoption. The rest have come from those who did the same. For this reason, we have some right to consider ourselves a picked group, a group of those who had the courage to break from the past and brave the dangers and the loneliness of a strange land. What was the object that so nerved us, or those who went before us, to this choice? We sought liberty, freedom from oppression, freedom from want, freedom to be ourselves. This is what we sought. This we now believe that we are by way of winning. What do we mean when we say that first of all we seek liberty? I often wonder whether we do not rest our hopes too much upon constitutions, upon laws, and upon our courts. These are false hopes. Believe me, these are false hopes. Liberty lies in the hearts of men and women. When it dies there, no constitution, no law, no court can save it. No constitution, no law, no court can even do much to help it. While it lies in our hearts, there it needs no constitution, no law, no court. And what is this liberty which must lie in the hearts of men and women? Please, please, please listen to what he writes next. What is this liberty which must lie in the hearts of us Americans? This is what he says next. It is not the ruthless, the unbridled will. It is not freedom to do as one likes. That is the denial of liberty and leads straight to its overthrow. A society in which men recognize no check upon their freedom soon becomes a society where freedom is a possession of only a savage few, as we have learned in this country to our sorrow. What then is the spirit of liberty? I cannot define it. I can only tell you my own faith. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the minds of other men and women. The spirit of liberty is a spirit which weighs their interest alongside its own without bias. The spirit of liberty remembers that not even a sparrow falls to earth unheeded. The spirit of liberty.
Folks, in 40 minutes, Senator Cory Booker will break the all-time record for one senator holding the floor of the Senate. That, of course, belongs to the racist segregationist Strom Thurmond of South Carolina, who stood up and filibustered for more than 24 hours in the 1957 Civil Rights Act. Booker has been talking, he's been laying out a history going to the past, to the present. Not only that, if you want to talk about impact, here are some numbers for you to comprehend when you look at what is going on here. First of all, as we speak, there are some 68,000 people who have been watching his TikTok page. Associated Press has 84,000 people watching their YouTube channel. There have been, when you talk about likes to his TikTok page, it has received 209 million likes. Now, I'm sure there's someone who's saying, well, what's the purpose here? First and foremost, when you have limited power, when Republicans with MAGA control the White House, the U.S. Senate, as well as the House, what you want to do is you want to have some sort of fight. This is the way you also fight. But it's not just, this is not only the way to fight, it also is understanding how do you push back on these things? How do you stand up? In fact, something happened today in the United States House where there was a particular bill that was offered up by nutcase Republican senator out of Florida, Anna Paulina Luna, who wanted to push forward a bill that would allow new members who have a baby, men and women, to be able to vote by proxy for up to 12 weeks. Well, guess what? The Republicans did not want to move forward. And so 9 Democrats joined with 9 Republicans joined with Democrats, and they pretty much frozen the U.S. House. You see right here, the story says the House voted on Tuesday to stop Republican leaders from blocking an impending vote on proxy voting for new parents, now leaving the House paralyzed after several Republicans joined Democrats to torpedo a procedural rule to advance the petition in a package of Republican bills. Speaker Mike Johnson literally has sent folks home because they can't move. You have these 9 Republicans who say, it's only fair that if you are a member and you have a baby, you should be allowed to vote by proxy. Republicans, nope, you have to sit here and vote here in person. Even though Congressman Byron Donalds, when he flew to L.A. to be on Bill Maher's show, he actually voted, although he wasn't present, and there's an investigation going to figure out who voted for him while he was gone. What people have been demanding, what Senator Cory Booker is doing, it was folks have been demanding to have some sort of fight, to stand up, to use every mechanism at your disposal to fight these people. Here's a clip, folk, from a congressional hearing where Congressman Joe Negase of Colorado put the screws to former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. You heard Senator Cory Booker there talking about how Donald Trump and others, how they were just ignoring these judicial rulings, and how they're angry because these judges are ruling against Donald Trump, MAGA, and Elon Musk. But as Joe Negase points out, Newt Gingrich was extremely quiet when these things were happening to President Biden. Watch this interaction.
And you would describe, 14 federal judges appointed by a president of an opposing political party issuing nationwide injunctions against a president's executive orders as a judicial coup d'etat.
I would describe the wave of decisions in the last 7 weeks deliberately designed to slow down, unwind, and block the president as clearly an effort by a group of judges.
I hear you. What I'm asking you, again, I don't think I'm mischaracterizing your testimony. 14 federal judges, all of an opposing political party, that is to say, 14 federal judges appointed by a president of an opposing political party, issuing nationwide injunctions against the president's policies, in your view, would be a judicial coup d'etat.
It depends on how long the time was.
Sounds like it depends on the president, Mr. Gingrich, because the president I'm describing is President Biden.
I know.
During his tenure, 14 federal judges issued injunctions against policies that he pursued via executive order. How many of them were appointed by Republican presidents? Do you know?
No.
100%, all of them.
Well, you're making my case.
I'm making your case. What's fascinating, Mr. Gingrich, is I didn't hear much from you about judicial coup d'etats when President Biden's policies were being rejected by federal judges across the country. It is very convenient now.
No.
Lo and behold, that you take great issue and you describe it as a judicial coup d'etat when I didn't hear these words 2 years ago.
Had the Judiciary Committee invited me in during the Biden administration, I would have been glad to say.
Well, I regret that Chairman Jordan.
I don't approve of.
I regret that Chairman Jordan didn't issue an invitation to you when, as Mr. Massey articulated, policy after policy, executive order after executive order issued by President Biden were being rejected by federal courts, subject to nationwide injunctions across the land. Apparently, you were just waiting to come testify in front of the committee to call that a judicial coup d'etat against President Biden. That's what it sounds like.
That's why I believe any kind of nationwide injunction should immediately go to the Supreme Court to be validated as a nationwide activity.
Well, I
don't believe district judges
I understand
have the authority.
That alternative. I understand that you've provided that particular alternative as something for this committee to consider. Your written testimony indicates far more significant and structural changes. You know, you referenced the Judiciary Act of 1802 and this notion that the Congress can abolish district courts and the rest, and you seem to be suggesting those as remedies that we ought to consider. In any event.
That's how you expose these hypocrites and these liars. My panel, Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney, joining us from Los Angeles. Dr. Larry J. Walker, assistant professor, University of Central Florida, joining us from Orlando. Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice with the EPA out of D.C. While we are having this conversation, folks, guys, come on. I need you to keep Booker up. While we're having this conversation, we're going to have two boxes. We're going to have Booker speaking while we're speaking as well. We are also live. We're also carrying his speech live as well on the Black Start Network. And so we're now, and as I said, Senator Strom Thurmond, that racist from South Carolina, holds the record during a filibuster more than 24 hours. At 7:20 p.m. Eastern, Senator Cory Booker will actually break that record. So that will take place in 33 minutes. We will have it live right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Mustafa, I'll start with you. What he is doing here is critically important because, again, you use everything in your arsenal. Many people have believed that Senator Chuck Schumer has been too nice, too procedural, too institutionalist in fighting back. What this has done by him speaking this long, it's going to be massive media coverage. People are clipping what he is saying. They're posting on social media. It's all over the place. And you're going to see that happen before. When he finishes, when he chooses to end, we are going to restream the entire speech. And this is how you have to fight back with everything that you have.
Yeah. You know, Senator Booker, I'm blessed that he's a friend. I remember one time he told me, you know, stand up for what's right, even when you stand alone. And what you see there is an individual who, you know, is not giving any pretense. He actually truly cares about our country at a depth that you rarely see from many politicians. So, you know, there's no veneer there. You know, Senator Booker is actually sharing exactly how he feels, and he puts his words into action. And this is an important moment. Not only is it a historical moment, but it is also an opportunity for folks to listen and then to actually do their own research on the things that he's talking about so that they have a better understanding of how we can move forward, where we came from, where we are in this moment, and the possibilities moving forward. And one of the things I always appreciate about Senator Booker is that he always makes sure that you understand what a North Star looks like. So as he is talking about many of the impacts that are happening to all kinds of communities across our nation, he also makes sure that he lets people understand that it doesn't have to be this way, that you have power to be able to make change happen. When he talks about we the people, he is talking about everyone and their set of responsibilities and their set of opportunities in this moment to right the direction that our country needs to be moving in. And that is one where equality is honored. That is one where no one gets left behind. That is one where everyone's voice is important. And it is one that says that when you have a tyrant or a dictator, that you have the power to push back. And that's why this moment is so incredibly important, because it helps people to understand that there are things that they can do. And hopefully that folks will feel after they listen to his words and other people's words, that they get engaged.
Folks, when we talk about, today is April 1st, of course, and in 2 days, it will be the anniversary of the last sermon delivered by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which took place at Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. And you know what, Larry, I would say that sure you have other senators who are standing up asking questions while Cory is speaking. You got Senator Chris Murphy right now. To me, if you want to do this, let's see who this next senator is. Who says when Cory decides to sit down, that person says, I'm going to hold the floor for 24 hours. And then the next senator says, I'm going to hold the floor for 24 hours. This is a moment where Democrats have to show some fight. Look, we saw what happened in Louisiana with the special election on Saturday. We got the elections tonight. Republicans are scared to death of losing that Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. They're scared to death of losing those 2 special elections in Florida. This is a moment where people are saying, where is the resistance movement? Here it is.
You know, Roland, it's really interesting and sitting watching, Senator Booker for the last several hours, and obviously he's on, about to break the record, all-time record, held by Strom Thurmond, who I'll get to in a second. And, Roland, last time I was on your show, I made a point, and I want to highlight it again, that the Democrats have been focused on decorum and not discord. Let me repeat that again. They're focused on decorum and not discord. This is an example of discord. And you talked about, Minority Leader Schumer and the criticism he's encountered the last couple of weeks because there's individuals who believe he's not taking a strong enough stance. I think one of the reasons for that is that Schumer's been in the Senate for many years, and he sees the institution as the way it was 30, 40 years ago. That institution is no longer around, and he's having a hard time adjusting. I think the other thing as it relates to what you see from Senator Booker here, and I mentioned, we talked about Strom Thurmond here, who's a noted segregationist. Roland, up for folks who are watching, they may not understand this. I think this is complexity of races in America. The Strom Thurmond also had a black daughter who we didn't find about until after he passed away. And I highlight that because that speaks to the complexity of how racism works in this country, and that you could be a segregationist and still have someone in your immediate family who is black. The other thing is, Roland, I think you're really right. You're right when it comes to who's going to take the baton and to continue the discord, not only in the Senate, but in the House. Because if you think that business as usual will take place, then you're going to find that all of our constitutional rights are continue to be eroded. And we see between the judiciary, legislative, and executive branch that the legislative branch is not, adhering to its constitutional responsibility to hold steady when there is another branch, in this case, the executive branch, which is attempting to be more of a dictatorship and some authoritarian government. You should have judiciary holding up as much as possible, but once again, the legislative branch attempting to undermine it through threats, pass bills to impeach judges, etc. So once again, we need to focus on discord and not decorum, or our country will continue to be in a lot of trouble.
On Saturday, Indivisible will be launching marches all across the country. Anthony, go to my iPad. This is their website, indivisible.org. And Joe, there have been people who I've been seeing on social media, black people, sit down, rest, relax on April 5th. Let them have it. No, I can't do that. I can't endorse that. April 5th is the day after Dr. King was assassinated. And when I interviewed Reverend Jim Lawson, Reverend Lawson went home for dinner. He's promised his wife he would always come home for dinner. And he would have been on the balcony at the Lorraine Motel on April 4th, 1968, but he was at home with dinner. The shot rang out at 6:01 p.m. Central Standard Time. Dr. King was essentially dead on the spot. And I asked Dr. Lawson what happened that night. And there's a photo of MLK's aides in his hotel room on April 4th. Now, this is, their leader has been killed. Their leader is dead. And they are literally in the hotel room after his assassination talking about what's next. And I asked Reverend Lawson, what, folks weren't in shock. What he said, we had work to do. They immediately were focused on planning. And that's exactly what happened. So I can't endorse this idea of resting, not when you have this evil, corrupt thug running the administration.
Yeah, I mean, the work doesn't change. And hopefully what Senator Booker is doing, first of all, he has the credibility to do it, with all due respect to well-intentioned Democrats. Cory Booker is the guy, is a person who could lead on this because of the credibility he has, because he always appeals to our better angels, because he always has had a vision of what you're doing being bigger than you. So he does this, with credibility to begin with. But one of the things that has to happen, and he talked about how, liberty has to lie in the heart somewhere. So something's got to happen here for people to pick up. Now, it might take some external factors. It might take losing your job when you didn't think you were going to. It might take, an elder, smacking you upside the head, figuratively, if not literally, reminding you, do you know what we fought for? It might take a reminder. How many of us are conscious of the fact that April 4th is the anniversary of Dr. King being killed? Do we remember what he was there for? So Reverend Lawson and all the others carried out the march and the work that he was there to do in Memphis. So something has got to happen with us on the inside that drives us to say, we will continue to fight. By the way, we don't need to remind anyone, or we shouldn't need to remind anyone, that Trump is somebody that did not win with a mandate. Trump is somebody that most people did not vote for. Trump is somebody that most people don't like the things that he's doing right now. He's also somebody that's fine with a judge, a local federal judge, a federal state court judge, or federal judge, district court judge, issuing an injunction that has a national effect for a time when it comes out in his favor. So he's very pragmatic about whether or not he likes what judges are doing. And so, and to the point that was made, he could very well, Joe Biden could have been screaming the same thing. There's no question about that. So people have to be moved on the inside to make sure we capture the notion that this is an important, vital, and crucial moment, because so much is being destroyed. It's so easy to burn something down and so much harder to build up the same thing. It's so easy to take something apart and to take it away and to undo it as opposed to rebuilding it. And so what we're trying to do is make sure people understand the moment that we're in, and what hopefully this would lead to is a continuation of this call of action that would have us standing up right now, not sitting down. It would have us embracing the notion, leaning in on the fact that most of us want something else, being glad that the courts are doing what they're doing, but understanding that there has to be a movement in the heart for us to be able to take and to sustain this, even when it's painful, even when it's difficult, even when we don't have the majority. We've got elections to do. We saw what happened in Louisiana over the weekend. Folks dismissed what the governor was trying to do entirely. So there is momentum there to be had. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's necessary. You don't take on something because it's easy. You take it on because it's hard, despite the fact that it's hard, because it's the right thing to do. And hopefully we're following this North Star that was talked about before, that Senator Booker is giving us all so that we can move forward the way that we need to.
See, the reason I don't go for this rest stuff, and look, I understand people who are tired and frustrated. I get all of that. But again, how I'm looking at this here, this is the actual image. A Time Life photographer shot these images. This is the bedroom. This is the room that Dr. King slept in. This is the room that he stepped out of onto the balcony where he was shot and killed. Here they are. You see in the chair to the right, James Bevel. You see Ben Hooks. You see Andrew Young on the far left by the lamp. You see Ralph Abernathy in the middle there on the bed. You tap in. This is actually the Time Life photographer. This is Dr. King's monogram suitcase with all of his items in it. This is a shot of Reverend Ralph Abernathy and Will Campbell embracing. This is the outside of the motel. Why am I saying this? If these folks, hours after their leader was brutally assassinated and slain, and they are in a state of shock, but they are still focused on how do you move forward with the movement, this is how we have to do. when it comes to this thug that we're seeing in the White House, when it comes to the actions of this thug, Elon Musk, how he is using Twitter to attack people, how he is trying to buy off elections. This is not a moment for freedom fighters in order to back off. Let's go back live to the U.S. Senate to Senator Cory Booker.
They get out of there shaken up, and they start writing letters back and forth. The good owners of the home found out what was going on. They were so aghast. They said, let us sell the house directly to the black family. The black family moved in. And 43 years later, the baby from that family became the 4th popularly elected black senator in our country, me. Now, I tell that story because I started with John Lewis 24 hours ago, and it was John Lewis and a bunch of marchers on a bridge that influenced the destiny of my life and my family's life. We're all interconnected. As King says, we're all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in that common garment of destiny. But I want to tell you the second time John Lewis shook up my life. I was mayor of the city of Newark, and I got called to be on a TV show. I got called by a guy named Skip Gates, who I love, admire, and he calls me and he jazzes me up. He fills my ego. He just flatters me. Hey, I got this show called Finding Your Roots, Cory Booker, and you're a rising star. You're this hot shot. We should feature you in this. And I'm like, oh, great. Oh, don't say that, Skip. But okay, yeah, of course. And then I said, okay, well, who are you going to pair me with? And I thought it was going to be another young hotshot, up-and-coming politician in America. No, he goes, I'm going to pair you with John Lewis. And my heart sank a little bit. Actually, maybe it was my ego that sank. My heart got excited because I know how these shows start. They start with biographies. And so imagine the show starting. John Lewis, hero of the civil rights movement, literally bled the southern soil red for freedom and justice. And then it goes to my biography. Cory Booker, riding his big wheel in suburban New Jersey. The show was unbelievable, mountain and boy. But I got to meet John Lewis. I got to tell him that story, that he changed my life, and I didn't even know it. On a bridge in Alabama, changed the course of events in New Jersey that led to me. Third take on John Lewis. My colleagues know I got here in a special election in 2013. What all my colleagues might not know is I came here with a broken heart. My mom and I came here with a broken heart because I was elected in October, sworn in October, but also in October, my dad died of Parkinson's. That's why I got choked up reading these letters from people with Parkinson's. And so we came down here, we were grieving. My dad was not with us. My mom lost her husband of nearly 50 years, and I'm going to get sworn in. It's a big event, but my parents and my campaign decided, you know what we should do? Right before you get sworn in or brought over here to be escorted to the president, vice president, that you should go and sit with John Lewis. And so we went to John Lewis's office, and a lot of my colleagues from the CBC, a lot of my colleagues from the House, a lot of my colleagues like here who came over to the House know his office. You walk into his office, and it looks like a civil rights museum, except he's in all the pictures. And this is John Lewis, we who knew him. This was him, mountain of a man. He had already prepared eggs and grits, a good Southern breakfast, and wouldn't let my mom and I get up, and he serves us all, and he humbly is saying, this is why I marched, this is why I sacrificed for history-making days like this. He told us how special this was for him. He told me that he would be right here where my friends are sitting, watching me get sworn in, and how proud he was going to be. In a sense, he stood in for my dad on this floor. And then boom, I'm a senator. I find colleagues and friends here, and I find a lot of colleagues and friends in the CBC. At that point, I was the only African-American in our caucus and found so many friends, so many heroes that have gone up from the Senate now who looked at me, adopted me, helped me. Dick Durbin, you were amazing in those early months. And this is the next time I meet John Lewis for a moment that changed my life. Chris Murphy, Brian Schatz, remember this moment. It was during the 2017 healthcare debate when I didn't know how we were going to stop that bill from passing and taking away 20 million healthcare from 20 million Americans. But John Lewis, hey, Cory, let's do something different. what you got in mind? And I said, well, John Lewis, I got this phone. It's very powerful. Let's do a Facebook Live. And so I open it up, Facebook Live. We meet in the Capitol, and then he says, hey, where can we go to sit down for a place? And I love it, my favorite place to sit. I watch Schoolhouse Rock so much, it's right on the steps of the Capitol. Let's just sit there and talk. Chris Murphy, Brian Schatz, first people out to sit with us. And the time lapse is amazing. First 2, 3 people, then 10 people, then 50 people, then hundreds of people. I have it all. Coming because of the moral magnetism of this man, John Lewis. And he talked to people that night who were looking for, what can I do? I'm just one person. And this guy who in his 20s, who was just one person and caused a heck of a lot of good trouble, he told them, don't lose faith, don't lose hope. Get angry, but let it fuel you. Be afraid, but know that's a necessary precondition to courage. He was amazing that night, and I know my colleagues remember that. And then there was the next time. Oh, Brother Warnock, you're going to love this one. The next time I was with John Lewis, Jimmy Carter had gotten a little sick. But then he got better and went back to teaching Sunday school. And I thought, this man is in his 90s. I need to go to Sunday school. And so who do I know? Because there's a waiting line. It's like people sleep out all night. I might have been a little selfish. How do I know I can get in? Call John Lewis. I say, hey, I got this great idea. Why don't we go to Jimmy Carter to watch him teach Sunday school? So I have the singular greatest road trip. I fly into Atlanta, we get into a car, and we drive all those hours to Plains, Georgia. Indeed, people were waiting outside, but it's John Lewis. Come on in. We sit in the front row. I must be in the front row. And we sit down. And then this marvelous, incredible moment comes. Somebody comes and says, Congressman Lewis, Senator Booker, the President, First Lady would love to see you beforehand. It's my first time meeting President Jimmy Carter. But I walk in, I'm sort of on the sidelines. These two men are hugging each other. He and the First Lady. And the two of them whisper for a second, and Jimmy Carter walks over to me and says, I hear you're thinking about running for President of the United States. And he does something incredible. He says, I think you should run, but only if you run, and he pokes my heart, only if you run from here.
Folks, we're going to continue to, we're going to check back in to the Senator Cory Booker speech in 12 minutes when he actually breaks the record of racist segregationist Senator Strom Thurmond for holding the floor of the United States Senate for the longest. You heard Senator Booker there talking about former President Jimmy Carter telling him, if you're going to run for president, run from the heart. Well, a week from now in St. Louis, voters there will decide whether Tashara Jones gets a second term in office. She is the first black woman to ever serve as mayor of St. Louis. She's in a runoff with Alderwoman Kara Spencer. Kaya Reed joins us right now. She is executive director of Action St. Louis Power Project. Glad to have you here. Kaya, talk about exactly what is going on there on the ground and to get people to turn out. We know how runoffs are. Typically, it's not a lot of people who come back to show up. What are y'all doing to make sure that black folks, at least, are showing up and showing out at the polls a week from now?
Yeah, thanks, Roland, for having me on. As the executive director of Action St. Louis Power Project, we endorsed Mayor Jones and are supporting her campaign to be reelected. Our team has knocked tens of thousands of doors already, specifically in North City, because we really see the strategy as twofold. One, we really need to increase the number of folks who are going to vote in April. There's normally an increase in turnout, about 6 to 8%. We really need that turnout to be in the double digits. We have some other things on the ballot like comptroller, because our city is sort of a weak mayor system. So our executive branch consists of 3 seats, and the sort of corporate donor class is going after 2 seats. So they're going after the longest serving Black woman in the city of St. Louis, Darlene Green, who is our comptroller, and Mayor Tashara Jones. So they're targeting 2 Black women with horrible ads and messaging, really trying to signal to a specific base of voters that they need to come out to get these Black women out of office. And we're doing the opposite. We're doubling down on the record that Darlene Green has been the shepherd of our finances as a city for decades and has done a wonderful job. And Mayor Jones in her first year has done historic things inside of the city of St. Louis and deserves another 4 years to really cement some of those initiatives that she started in her first term.
You have the official Democrats, if you will, who are supporting Spencer, turning their back on Tashara Jones. Spencer, if I'm correct, gathered in the initial race, got more votes than everybody else who was running. So, and typically what happens in runoff, that person typically wins, but that's not always the case.
No, it's not always the case. And, St. Louis is in the business of making history. We are the city that elected Cory Bush to Congress 4 years ago in a historic turnout. And so we are in the business of telling the truth. We're knocking doors. We're making calls. We're holding events. I'm actually upstairs from an event happening right downstairs where folks are doing voter mobilization work to talk to voters about the truth of the candidates. And one candidate has specifically decided to use her first term to invest millions of dollars in divested communities, prioritizing working people over corporations for the first time in our city's history. The other candidate is being bankrolled by corporations who want to seize our assets and drive profit for themselves. She is really being supported by sort of like the Southern Strategy Coalition, folks who may be critical of the mayor, but also folks who typically vote Republican are coming over to the Democratic side, and folks who are typically conservative really starting to say that they want to take the city back. Alderwoman Spencer's campaign is "We Can Do Better," but she is more of the same. And so we really feel like Mayor Jones has a pathway to victory. We're working alongside many organizations and many voters to tell the truth of Kara's record, of her ineffectiveness as an alderperson over the last decade, and how Mayor Jones has done a wonderful job in 4 years. And there's still more work to do. And we think that she's the person that needs to be the captain of this plane to take us to the next place.
When you talk about looking at numbers, I'm all about vote counting. At the end of the day, if you want to win anything, you got to count votes. What are the areas of St. Louis that y'all are focusing on to turn them out? What are the critical places that y'all have to get folk there to vote?
Yeah, so this is, Kayla, this is my math. I do this job. And so we sort of have two target audiences. One is sort of like a multiracial, progressive South Side that lives south of Del Mar. And a lot of people have heard about the Del Mar divide in St. Louis. It really is the way that you can tell the story of racial inequality in a place like St. Louis. But we have sort of a progressive, multiracial coalition on the South Side that we're really trying to mobilize those folks to come out. We have more races on the ballot like aldermen, school board. So we're going to see more people who didn't participate in March participate in April. And we want to make sure that they're participating in voting for Mayor Jones. And then also the North Side, which is historically where Black folks have been concentrated. It's where where I grew up. It's where our parents lived. And so they're an older voter, a moderate voter, but we know that they have the ability to turn out strong. And so really our efforts are in those two places to boost turnout and to do a lot of conversations about telling the truth, because people are being inundated with poor messaging. Kara's on TV. She's sending mailers that are just flat out lies. Today, I actually posted something where she voted on a program that Mayor Jones proposed called Right to Counsel that we supported, which provides legal support for folks facing eviction, which we knew was a crisis after the pandemic. Alderwoman Spencer voted on that in support of it and sent a mailer out today that landed in folks' mailbox saying that Mayor Jones was wasting tax dollars by funding this program. And so we are calling out the hypocrisy, we're calling out the lies, we're setting the record straight and doing everything we can to get people to the polls with the right message so that they make the right decision on April 8th.
Quick questions from our panel. First off, let's go to you, Joe.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's so incredibly important. I'm wondering if, we all know that all politics is local, but is there an opportunity that you see? I know you're not on the campaign, you're driving people to come out and vote. Is there an opportunity at all to tap into what is already some frustration with what's going on with the Trump administration, particularly as pertains to things that have the potential to affect dollars in the St. Louis area? And if not, is there a general notion that the mayor, the current mayor, who hopes to be reelected, is trying to tap into in terms of saying, government can work for you, it has, and here's what I'm doing and want to continue to do?
Absolutely. So again, as an organizer, we tell no lies to the people, and so Mayor Jones has been on the front line of responding to Republican extremism. We just watched as this new governor, because we're not only dealing with Trump and the White House and Congress and that sort of MAGA wave. In Missouri, our state legislature, there is a Republican trifecta, there is a MAGA trifecta, and they are doing everything they can to repeal progressive wins and seize control of the city as the economic engine of the state. And so we are telling that story in the same way that we sort of see Elon Musk bankrolling campaigns in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court and having had a very heavy hand on the presidential election last year. We're seeing the same sort of mimicking of the corporate class here in St. Louis, where CEOs are donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to Kara's campaign, to the PACs that support her. They're sending out these anti-Black messages, calling Black women who have more executive experience than Alderwoman Spencer incompetent and failures as leaders. And we're also, really tying in that in this moment where Black people live in Democratic strongholds, we don't just need someone who's focusing on sort of the mechanics of the city. We also need someone who can run a city and respond to the political attacks that are going to come to places like this. We know ICE is snatching people off of the streets. We know that they're coming after reproductive rights. St. Louis has the only abortion clinic in the state. We know that they just seized control of our police department. What does that look like for accountability? We can't have someone who's just going to acquiesce, who's just going to fold, and allow people who donate to both Republicans and her, like Kara Spencer, lead our city.
Real quick here, Mustafa.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for what you're doing. We got to have candidates that are sharing something for people to vote for. Could you talk a little bit about what are those major items, those major issues that folks are hoping whoever gets elected will be able to focus on?
Yeah, so, to Shar, Mayor Jones's sort of platform is robust in that it really thinks about policy as a driver to help economic engines thrive. So one thing that a lot of folks are having conversations about is a fund of money. When the St. Louis Rams became the LA Rams, we sued and got resources because they broke contract. And so we have about a $300 million pot of money that's not federally controlled, that's not state controlled. The city is sort of the control of this fund. And so really investing in that. One candidate wants to invest that exclusively in downtown, where those corporate donors are benefiting from that investment. And Mayor Jones wants to invest that in historically neglected neighborhoods like North City, where we have seen, just the plight of divestment over the decades, from when St. Louis had almost 1 million people in the 50s to now we sit under 300,000 residents in 2025. And so she has an agenda that is about increasing Black-owned businesses, creating more pathways for opportunity. She has been on the front lines of ensuring that those investments reach businesses, nonprofits, and some corporations. She's done a lot to increase our access to affordable housing. Black folks specifically are being priced out in St. Louis. And St. Louis is one of the more affordable places in the country, but we're seeing rent increase since the pandemic over 100%. And so what does it look like to be building more truly affordable housing, holding landlords accountable when they don't have safe units? What does it look like to continue to invest in the decrease in crime that we've seen under Mayor Jones? So we've seen a double-digit drop in violent crime in the city of St. Louis under her leadership. We also see that they're constantly working with our school board to improve education for our young people. She's deeply committed to early childhood.
About 10 seconds.
Yeah, she's deeply committed to early childhood. And so she just does have a vision, and this other candidate just wants to be a replacement.
All right.
We want to make sure voters know about that.
Cory, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
Folks, let's go live to the United States Senate, where Senator Cory Booker is about to break the long-standing record. Go.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Order. Order. The chair does not wish to take away from this moment, but I think the best way to honor this great accomplishment to our guests in the gallery, to make a rare exception and let you stand to show your appreciation, I will not constrain my fellow senators.
Thank you. I'm Chuck Schumer. I have yielded for a question, and you asked me, did I know? I know now. I want to not quite wrap this up yet. I don't want to wrap this up yet. My mom's senator. My mom's been watching. I know Catherine Cortez Masto has a podium in front of her. She can give me a rest. I'd like to go a little further if we can, just a little further. I love, and again, I know people are trying to train each other, and all of our media operations, they give the worst images of the people of the other party. But I want to tell you, one of the funny tweets my staff gave me is something Ted Cruz said. Is he's around 19, 20 hours, he said, maybe I should pull a fire alarm. He's going to break my record. I'm going to pause in a moment if she has a question for me to Catherine Cortez Masto, because she's my mother. But I do want to just say again, 2 points to make if I can. One is how grateful I am to my staff. When we decided to do this many days ago, they were like, we have to do this. And we started preparing and working on this, and they did an extraordinary job. They were with me late nights, writing. I just feel guilty because they wrote about 10 books, and we didn't use all of them. They were really substantive stuff, pulling from Republicans and Democrats in critique of this moment, pulling from Democrats and Republicans, Republican governors that were saying, do not cut Medicaid. States that know, as my colleagues do, that have a trigger, that if the Medicaid funding goes below 90%, they stop the Medicaid expansion. My staff really worked hard to not make this just Democratic voices, to make it people in our country, that Republicans and Democrats, you heard mentioned in the speech, the Cato Institute, the Manhattan Institute, all people who are honest arbiters and are saying that what Trump is doing is wrong, that a budget like this that blows massive holes in our deficit, it will be something our children are trying to pay for. And what are they ultimately paying for that's caused this big deficit? It's trillions of dollars of tax cuts that people like Doge, multi-billionaire Musk will benefit from, but children won't. They did such a good job bringing together authorities on both sides of the aisle. I just want to thank them. I want to thank my cousin Pam and my family. Cousin Pam, like Chris Murphy, was here for the whole time. I want to thank Chris Murphy again. Who never stopped telling me we could do this, we can do this, we can do this, and said, I will stay with you. He's been with me on the floor. I hope you don't look as tired as I look, because you look beat, man. Do I look that bad? No. All right. I want to go a little bit past this, and then I'm gonna deal with some of the biological urgencies I'm feeling. But I'm going to wait here because I have the power, I have the floor. Somebody has to ask me, perhaps from my mom's state, the way that's supposed to work.
So will the good senator from New Jersey yield for a question?
My mom would be so upset with me, my Aunt Marilyn, my Uncle Butch, my Aunt Shirley, all the people that are your constituents, not mine. They would be upset with me if I didn't yield to you for a question while retaining the floor.
Well, first of all, Senator Booker, I have to say, we in Nevada are so proud of you. We are proud to be Nevada Strong. You are one of us. You are definitely New Jersey, Nevada Strong, and so proud of what you have accomplished so far, and willing to stay here as long as it takes to help you get your message across. And I think that's the important moment. We are all here right now. So I want to pose a question to you, actually a couple questions, but I want to start off and set the stage here, because You have been here now, for over 24 hours. You are missing some of the national news, things that are happening out there. But one of the things I want to point to that is happening that you may not be aware of, and you've touched on it a little earlier today, is this notion that we have now a president who is actually focused on billionaires and tax cuts for billionaires at the expense of the American public. And one of the things we have watched him do is cut funding for medical research. Now, what you may not know is just today I found out that HHS laid off the entire healthy aging branch of the CDC, just today. This office administers Alzheimer's disease programs.
Yes.
And it oversees the funding from the Bold Infrastructure for Alzheimer's Act, and it is a piece of legislation that I was so proud to partner with Susan Collins on. And she has fought for, and we have fought for, funding for it to support caregivers and their families. And Congress just reauthorized this funding. And now we have a president that has stopped the critical work that scientists are doing to try and cure Alzheimer's. And I bring this to your attention, Senator, because like you, and I think like all of us, there are personal moments in the work that we do. My personal moment is my grandmother, who I'm named after, died from Alzheimer's. And she died at a time in Las Vegas when there was not enough research, when there was not enough health care, when there were really not enough providers to understand what was going on. And so for many of us, this fight, not only is it personal, but we recognize the impact that it has outside the Beltway in so many families and lives across the country. And that's what this is about. In Nevada, as of 2023, there are 49,000 people, 65 and older, are living with Alzheimer's. And that's projected to reach 65,000 this year. Not only did we hear that HHS laid off the entire healthy aging branch of the CDC, but Donald Trump also recently terminated a $14,000 NIH research grant that had been supporting Alzheimer's research at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And he's continued to cut the grant for essential research for so many reasons. We've seen these funding cuts, we've seen mass layoffs, and the impoundment of grants that have already been approved by Congress. This is a violation of the rule of law, and you have been talking about that for the last couple of hours. President Trump is forgetting that this is personal. It is happening to so many families. So my question, Senator Booker, to you is, what do you think families and caregivers of those impacted by Alzheimer's, how they are feeling about what is happening right now?
So this bothers me for two reasons, and the first you've already mentioned, is this is the point of bipartisan work that we do. I talked about Chris Murphy and the bipartisan gun bill that lots of people here worked on with Senator Cornyn and others, and how upset my state is that some of that community violence intervention money that I worked so hard to get in that bill is being clawed back by a president. There are people in this room, I know so many of you, and I know on the other side, that have done such great work to work with our colleagues to find common ground and get really important programs passed that bring resources to families. And it's being clawed back by our president, not with consultation, not with a hearing, not with a discussion of even why you would target Alzheimer's research. That is a violation of the separation of powers. And I wish my Republican colleagues would hold more hearings about that. These are programs that they like. I saw that with USAID. I worked with Marco Rubio on some of that programs and those investments that are now been cut and clawed back. So it's a separation of powers issues. It's an offense to the common goals that we share in this community of leaders. But the second reason it bothers me is an article I read hours ago by Fareed Zakaria. And he talked about what's happening to a nation that cuts so dramatically what is one of the best taxpayer investment dollars in biomedical sciences. If you're an investor and I told you there's an investment that every dollar you invest, you would get $5 back for your economy, folks would be invested in that vehicle. Well, that's NIH funding. Every dollar you invest, who would cut a profit center? It's not just a profit center, though. The outcomes, the discoveries, could change the lives of people who are suffering in your nation and around the world. But he's attacking them. I read all these universities from around the country. This shows you how magnanimous I'm trying to be. I even read stories from USC. I'm sorry, rival. That all of these universities are cutting their postdocs, cutting their PhDs, cutting the lending, because they don't know, as Donald Trump threatens, the direct costs they're stopping. And Fareed Zakaria said so painfully to all Americans with Americans' pride, as we are doing that, China, who, when they had that Cultural Revolution, they first went after their universities. Now, modern China, their government is doing the opposite. They're trying to out-America us. They're massively increasing their investments in scientific research because they know if they get ahead of us on quantum computing, all of our subs can be located. God knows what could happen. They could, any kind of cryptology they could break. They know if they get ahead of us on scientific research, the power and advantage it will give them, so they're doubling down. But what are we doing in America? We're tolerating a president that is cutting the funding that will predict who defines the future and what values will define those futures. Will they be democratic values, or will it be the values of the country that's competing with us to beat us, and right now we're giving them a head start? And then the final reason that question bothers me is because my father died of Parkinson's, and he had Parkinson's-related dementia. And I know what that's like. I know the pain families are enduring. I remember the time that my dad and my mom, we were in the movie theater, and my mother just shook my world. She was in Georgia. And so many people here in this room have had the same experience. We're in a movie theater, and my mom leans over to me and said, "You need to take your dad to the bathroom." I never imagined the years of my dad as a 2-year-old and 3-year-old taking me to the bathroom, that one day I'd have to take him. And so in this Atlanta movie theater, in the middle of a movie, which I was like, okay, it's time for me to do this ritual that so many families know. I pick my dad up, who's shuffling with his Parkinson's. I'm not seeing any light in his eyes that he's there. I'm just letting him hold me, and he's shuffling into the bathroom. And then we get to a public bathroom. His hands are shaking. He's standing in front of the urinal, and then I realize I got to unbuckle this man's pants. So many families know this, and my ego, I'm sorry, I was leaning over and I'm saying, wait a minute, I'm in a public bathroom, leaning over, I'm buckling another man's pants. Please, please, God, don't let somebody come in. And as if God heard my call, someone walked in. And I hear the person walk, and I'm like, just please keep walking. Go into a stall, please keep walking. And then suddenly I hear their feet walk past me and stop. And then the man turns around and says, "Oh my God, Cory Booker." And then I look up at my dad, and I see the clarity in his eyes. He is 100% there, and he's grinning and loving my mortified embarrassment. Alzheimer's is devastating so many American families who are watching the loved one of their lives diminish. And we're cutting funding. Donald Trump is cutting funding, democratically, bipartisanly approved. So forget the separation of powers. It's important. It's so important. If that doesn't get you, then maybe think about the competition with China. If that doesn't get you, if those two don't get you, America, then think about the millions of Americans struggling with Alzheimer's, the struggles it does to those families. This is a moral moment, America. This is going to define the character of our country for years and years to come. Has the Senate called a hearing on your bipartisan funding, Senator? No. Have we done our oversight responsibility? Have we checked, as I read from the Federalist Papers, as our founders wanted us to do, is to check the executive, be the check at the executive that balances our governmental powers. No, we're not checking that executive. With Signalgate, I have heard from Republicans that serve in Congress, of the 535 with us, I know other colleagues here have heard, they're mortified. You talked about that. Mortified about that. And again, this is not partisan. The Biden administration made foreign policy mistakes. Obama made foreign policy mistakes. Reagan, when I was growing up, I was hearing about the Iran-Contra scandal. So I'm not going to be one of those peoples that the pristine, perfect Democrats. We've made mistakes. We've made failings. We've let the public down. We have some reckoning in our own party that we're working on right now. But that doesn't say that you should just be one of these people that says, well, Biden did it. No, you should be a leader of character that says there's something wrong here. And in fact, it could point to real problems in the national security of our country and the laws that we established. One of those laws is very simple. You're supposed to preserve records. How can a signal chain that disappears not be a violation of the law of this land? Is there a hearing on that? Head of the Intel Commission, not a hearing at all. Where are the checks and balances spelled out in the Constitution? We are derelicting our duties here in the Senate. We really are. And the consequences of that is the very national security of our country. How many times do you think this was the first time they created a signal chat? Or is this a pattern of practice? You're a really rational man. I keep looking at you, Mark. You're my leader on these issues. Or Jack Reed. No, this indicates a real problem, and the Senate, the United States Senate, should get to the bottom of it. This is a moral moment. I keep saying it's a moral moment. Who are we going to be? What's going to define us? And it's time not for the typical tribalism. It's time for leaders to start standing up and saying, you know what? We can go a different way. We can imagine a different country. That's why I pointed out the new leader of the Democratic Party on the House side. We're a different generation. There's a rising generation of people. I've talked about my friend who wrote this great book, Abundance. There's a whole bunch of new ideas out there that are about the future, about the possibilities, about the hope, about the greatness of America, not the greatness that is braggadocious, not the greatness that says, I'm better than you, not the greatness that says, only I can fix things. That's not the America we want. We want America that says, we the people. An America that says, e pluribus unum. An America says that our history shows that rugged individualism and self-reliance are important values, but rugged individualism didn't beat the Nazis. It didn't take us to the moon. We did that together, America. We need bigger visions that can unite us beyond our narrow partisan divides to get a real mandate. And you know what a real mandate should be? It should be government efficiency. It really should be. God, I have heard from so many of my colleagues on this side of the aisle that have said, if they formed a commission of former executives in this body, I see you, Maggie Hassan, it was hard, but I had to cut 24% of my budget, 1 out of 4 employees. It was really hard, it caused a lot of pain, but we had to reduce my government. There are a lot of people here, there are executives on both sides of the aisle that would have said, pick me, let's form the most exciting team possible. Because Jack Reed knows that the military of the United States of America could do things more efficiently. It's a little bit of waste over there, because they haven't passed an audit. Where's Maria Cantwell? The Commerce Committee, so many ideas about how to create profit centers in the American government. You have talked to me about them. You're brilliant on some of these ideas. I look around here, but I could look to the other side of the aisle. The farmer sitting over there, the guy who's been so good to me, Chuck Grassley. I forced that man to hug me when we passed. I forced him to hug me, sir. I have pictures. Can't deny it. I don't know how you're going to get reelected now, sir. You hug this dude, black dude from New Jersey. You're so sweet to me still. We passed a big bipartisan bill because people like him, like the presiding officer, I've met with you, you still have big ideas. You still have big ideas that aren't partisan. If President Trump, from his inaugural address to his first speech before a joint session of Congress said enough, There are big ideas in this country. I want the best. I want people to come together. I'm tired of us talking down at each other. It's time for us to come together and imagine ways to create real abundance in America for all Americans. I trust the genius of America, the kindness and the decency, but this president doesn't do that. He violates all of our common senses of decency. And don't say it doesn't happen, folks. Don't say that. I listen to him. I listen to how he talks about people. We have a government now, as I said earlier, that isn't ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. We have a country now where a president says, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for Donald Trump. And you're seeing who gets the special treatment. Some law firms are really threatened right now with being bankrupted by Donald Trump targeting them. Others have decided a different path. I'm not hating on them, but they said we're going to go to Trump and we're going to offer him what he wants. We're going to give him tens of millions of dollars of free pro bono work. I wish they would bring some of that free pro bono work to Newark, New Jersey. A lot of people who need lawyers, folks in my city. What are the standards here of our government? You want a merger? Well, maybe you should put a lot of money in Donald Trump's meme coin. I read the document, there's something word called emoluments, and we sit by and act like, oh, no big deal. He's made millions and millions of dollars from who we don't know. We haven't held one hearing of oversight to know who is giving him millions of dollars to that meme coin. Is it the Turks? Is it the Saudis? Is it the Chinese? Is it the Russian oligarchs? Do we know? Should we know? Yes, America, stop falling into tribal lanes and closing your eyes to things that should not be normalized. Why are we normalizing these things? They're wrong. They're patently, on the face of it, is wrong. If you use signal to discuss a military attack, the time of the attack, the weapons that are going to be used, and you do it on a commercial app and decide to include a reporter, there should be accountability. Am I crazy?
Order. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just remind you, expressions of approval and disapproval are not permitted by the gallery. Thank you.
He was forced to say that. Look at you, defiant man. The Senate and the House should be checks and balances on the President of the United States. The Senate and the House should not allow business as usual in this moment when the President is insisting that no one has the power to check and balance him. When a judge does it, when a judge decides on the soundness of his legal observations to have a ruling, and then the President of the United States doesn't appeal the ruling like most people kind of do, but starts to drag and insult and threaten that judge with impeachment. And some people, astonishing to me, in our government said, oh, that's right, we should impeach this guy. That's not a question of left or right, that's a question of right or wrong. We're normalizing this behavior. We're letting him do things that Republicans and Democrats should say together are wrong. And so I want to say, I'm going to stop soon.
Well, for a question?
Oh, yes. God bless you. I will yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Thank you. I want to start, before I get to my question, with just saying how proud I am, how proud we all are of you. And I think I'm old enough to remember Strom Thurmond's filibuster. I can remember being in high school and seeing the news every night and the reporters coming from the steps of the Capitol because they were filibustering the Civil Rights Bill. And what I'm proud of is that your focus on democracy and the opportunities of that democracy opens up for all of our rights, in my mind, cancels out what Strom Thurmond did to prevent African Americans and others from getting the rights they deserve in this country. So I'm proud of that. But I really want to, you talked earlier this afternoon about the rule of law and the overreach of this administration. And as part of that, you went through a litany of agencies that Congress had established that this president is trying to take away. And I just wanted to point out that, and you mentioned this earlier, one of those agencies that Congress established is the U.S. Agency for International Development. And earlier today, we had a shadow hearing roundtable, the Democrats on the Foreign Relations Committee. It was on the dangerous consequences of funding cuts to U.S. global health programs. And I know that as ranking member on the subcommittee on Africa and global health policy, you would have really been interested in this. I'm glad you were here on the floor, but I wish you could have heard what we heard from the people who testified. We heard from Atul Gawande, who used to be the administrator of USAID, their global health program. We heard from Dan Schwartz, who is the Vice President of Management Sciences for Health, that's a contractor that works on global health programs. And we heard from Nick Enrich, who's the former Assistant Administrator for Global Health at USAID. And they started out by talking about what global health has accomplished through USAID. PEPFAR has saved more than 26 million lives. It's reversed the spread of HIV/AIDS. They've done malaria prevention and control for over 500 million people. They've eradicated smallpox and eliminated most of polio. They've reduced infant mortality by more than 59% since 1990. They've supported cholera, measles, and Ebola outbreak response. And one of the things Dr. Gawande pointed out is that they took the response to Ebola outbreak from 2 weeks. Many of us remember that during the Obama administration when Ebola was coming to the United States. They took that response from 2 weeks down to 24 to 48 hours to be in there to be responding to the Ebola epidemic. And what has this president done? What has Elon Musk and Doge done? They've gone in to USAID. They've cut the global health workforce from over 800 to about 60. They've taken the system that was designed to make programs more efficient, and they dismantled it. And when the Inspector General Paul Martin reported on food rotting in ports, he was fired. USAID has been the largest civilian ground force to address global goals. As Dr. Gawande said, what we learned from USAID is that prevention is a whole lot more efficient and a lot cheaper than emergency treatment. He said that what we spend on global health through USAID has been $9 a household in America in a year. $9. Think about what we've done with that $9. And as they were going through the litany of programs that have been cut, the one that caught my eye was 75% of the pandemic threat comes from diseases jumping from animals to humans. That program has been terminated. 75% of the threat of future pandemics. So, as we think about rule of law and the overreach of this president, would you agree with me that there has been no consultation with Congress about any effort to move USAID into the Department of State, and that because Congress created this agency, Congress has got to be involved in reauthorizing whatever comes next, and that this president and his Doge boys need to understand that before they take any more steps at USAID?
Yes, yes, yes. You and I both know that in a bipartisan way, we created some of these programs principally to keep America safe. Many of us remember that dramatic hearing where Trump's Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, sat before the American people when they were discussing the budgets for USAID and the State Department. And John Mattis knew the power of those programs to keep us safe. You mentioned infectious diseases. Well, we live in a world where an infectious disease anywhere is a threat to public health everywhere. So pulling our scientists out of the fight against Ebola, pulling our scientists out of drug-resistant tuberculosis fights, it makes no sense. And then, in terms of our safety, he just simply said, if you cut these programs, buy me more bullets, because our fight's to spread democracy. There are nations in Africa, for example, where the Chinese are trying to influence a different way of life. That's why so many African countries now won't criticize China for things that the rest of the world say are bad, because they owe them so much debt, they're so engaged, they're so overplaying the fact. Chris Coons said something, I think it was Chris Coons said something painful earlier about Myanmar. This horrific thing. America, the most generous country on the planet, when there's a crisis, we lead the rest. I've sat in meetings in a bipartisan way with ambassadors from other countries where we had the moral authority to tell them, you're not doing enough. And in the Myanmar crisis right now, as Chris Coons said, who's standing there? Not Americans. We don't have the capacity anymore to help. In a horrific crisis like that, but the Chinese government's there. Again, it's what defines us. I keep saying this is not a left-right moment. This is a moral moment, and we tell our truth with what we do with our resources. And here's the thing. When you poll people and ask them how much money you spend on USAID, they say, oh, it must be 10% of the American budget. It must be 5% of the American budget. It's around 1% or less. A penny of what tax dollars you send down to Washington goes to help us to make sure that around the globe we're countering the hard power of some countries with the power of our light and our soft power. We have been the envy of the world, where people see and know how special America is, because we live the value of every major religion, that we're going to love our neighbors, we're going to be there for you in your times of need. And we all know, with a terrorist group from far away to the most horrific attack, that in a lot of these countries, terrorist groups are trying to counter the democratic governments there. Look in the Sahel region. Look what's happening. When I was in Nigeria, I was shocked to say what they're talking about: instabilities in the north, the threats of terrorism in the north. I'm going to go for 7 more minutes and stop, but I want to use these last 7 minutes to return one more time to the people of my state and actually other states who demanded we do things different, who asked for help. Before I do, I just want to thank Mike Lee today. He's my partner in antitrust, a specialty of my friend Amy Klobuchar. And I don't know if you got my text, but you got it, where I said to you, I'm kind of going to the floor to hold it for as long as I can. And I may not make our first subcommittee together on antitrust, where we have a lot of common ground. So I'm sorry I missed it today. I know you'll fill me in, but I know my friend filled in. Thank you. So I want to close back where we started, about us, about why I'm here. I believe that there is an urgent crisis in our country that we are not talking about. It's not a left-right crisis, it's a right-wrong crisis. It's a moral moment, and again, in America, that's going to define our character, about who we are and what we stand for. There's a threat to the bedrock commitments we've made to each other as a country. People are threatening that bedrock commitment of Social Security. They're calling it a Ponzi scheme. They're making up absolute lies about it. When I read American after American who said that that is their lifeline, they told stories that if they don't get their Social Security payment or they get caught up because nobody's answering their calls. If the rural Social Security office, I read states, red and blue, where they're closing Social Security offices, if I now have to drive not 100 miles, but 150 miles at 93 years old, it doesn't quite make sense. One of my colleagues stood up here and said, that's already a cut in benefits if you can't access the folks. I stood here because there's a threat to these bedrock commitments. The bedrock commitment we've made in healthcare in this country. We won the defense of the Affordable Care Act, but my colleagues know when you start talking about Medicaid, that's not 20 plus million Americans. It's 70, 80, 90 million Americans. It's our elders in nursing homes. It's our children with disabilities. It's our moms giving birth that are still giving birth in the country with about the highest maternal mortality rates in the industrial world. It's a moral moment. Who do we stand for? Like Schumer shocked me when he said they're going to use some kind of budget gimmick to push this through. He shocked me, Chuck. I thought this was going to come down to the parliamentarian, but it doesn't sound like it. Now it's just going to get done. With the math, and I read from Manhattan Institute criticized it on the right. AEI criticized it on the right. They said, what are you doing? What are you doing, America? You're going to rake up trillions and trillions of dollars in debt that our children and our children's children are going to have to pay for, passing the bucks that will grow. Are you doing that to help people get more access to health care, more access to retirement security, more access to the things we believe in, big ideas like universal child care, paid family leave? No, we're doing that in order to renew the tax cuts that I read conservative budget folks, moderate budget folks, all across the spectrum who said it will blow up our deficit. And the benefits of those tax cuts, not all, let's not use hyperbole, but most will go to the richest people in our country who I promise you, I celebrate people who've brought their ingenuity and their expertise and their grit and their tireless work who've built wealth in this country. Should not be us versus them, but I'm telling you that those folks do not need another tax cut. And the corporations who came here, you all remember, and said we would like a 25% rate. The people I read said that when we kicked it to 21, not even what they were asking for from 35, it exploded. One of the main reasons it exploded our debt. And we read from conservative groups who just said all these promises that we would grow our way out of our deficit, they didn't materialize. All the promises that were made. Trump, for those who don't remember or weren't here when I read it, was going around telling folks that, oh, my tariffs, this is 2017, my tariffs, the money that I get, that will be what we could pay down the debt. The math that they did was that would account for about 1/750th of the debt at that time. But he used that money to try to compensate the farmers that he was hurting with his tariffs. This is a moral moment, and people are getting hurt, and people are afraid because of the threats to Medicaid cuts. There were people writing in and said $880 billion would devastate me, but even small cuts to services, my whole family, fragile architecture of our finances, if you just pull out the transportation money that my disabled child uses, that will crumble my financial world. And so when you talk about the bigger cuts, we know the math. Many states who expanded Medicare have a trigger that if it goes below 90%, all the Medicare expansion goes off in that state and millions of Americans will be hurt. That's not right, guys. That's not right. And so this is the choices we have before us. Our veterans and the VA. I'm mad at you now. You made me get very emotional with your story. We read John McCain's story. We read the stories of the poems of the unknown soldier looking over us and saying, what are you doing to the Gold Star families? What are you doing to the veterans? Are you living up to your promises that you made? Well, right now, with the cuts of tens of thousands, over 80,000 veterans who work for the VA, but even more, because about 20% or so of all federal workers are veterans. And we read stories from veterans in America who are shaken by what's happening, who are losing their jobs but yet all they want to do is serve. They're not what they're being called. They're not leeches. They're not criminals. They shouldn't be degraded for wanting to continue to serve their nation. This is what we're talking about, our veterans, our seniors, our health care, our financial security going forward. I asked the question to all those people who voted for Donald Trump, who believed in him that he would lower your grocery prices. I asked you, look at your financial self. Are you better off than you were 72 years ago financially? Well, the answer for most people who believed in him is no, because he didn't set out to do anything to lower prices. He set out to rename the Gulf of Mexico, to threaten Canada, to say I'm going to take over Greenland. He's done a lot of things, 140 executive orders. Many of them actually drive up your costs, make it more expensive to enroll in the ACA, reduce a lot of the tax credits there. He's increased your costs, he's taxed your bedrock services, stock market tumbles, your 401k accounts are less, inflation is up, consumer confidence is down. This is what the voices we brought into this chamber, the voices of our constituents, red states, blue states, the voices of Democrats and Republicans, Republican governors, Democratic governors. We brought all the people that are saying, no, this is a moral moment, not left or right, right or wrong. And so I've tried over the last 25 hours and 1 minute to center the conversation back on what will we do of good conscience. People who are saying, I served this country, I risked my life, shouldn't be able to keep my job. People who are saying, this country once made itself the envy of the world because we invested in high quality education for every child. I don't like what's going on at the end of the Department of Education. People who are saying, I worked harder than I ever have, but the prices on everything in my life are getting higher. People who are saying that the America I learned about in school, the one where people's rights are protected, the people are saying that why are we yet again going through another healthcare battle that threatens millions of people, the people are saying that I'm worried about the financial security and the future of my country, the voices of folks. And so I end by saying simply this, where I started was John Lewis. I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to stop us from going down this road. Chuck Schumer's now told me that they're greasing the skids to do these things. I'm sorry, but I know who does have the power. The people of the United States of America. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. It is time to heed the words of the man I began this whole thing with, John Lewis. I beg folks to take his example of his early days where he made himself determined to show his love for his country at a time the country didn't love him, to love this country so much, to be such a patriot that he endured beatings savagely on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, at lunch counters, on freedom rides. He said he had to do something. He would not normalize a moment like this. He would not just go along with business as usual. He wouldn't know how to solve it. But there's one thing that he would do that I hope we all can do that I think I did a little bit of tonight. He said for us to go out and cause some good trouble, necessary trouble, to redeem the soul of our nation. I want you to redeem the dream. Let's be bold in America, not demean and degrade Americans, not divide us against each other. Let's be bolder in America with a vision that inspires, with hope that starts with the people of the United States of America. That's how this country started. We, the people. Let's get back to the ideals that others are threatening. Let's get back to our founding documents, that those imperfect geniuses had some very special words at the end of the Declaration of Independence. It was one of the greatest in all of humanity declarations of interdependence. When our founder said we must mutually pledge to each other, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We need that now. From all Americans. This is a moral moment. It's not left or right, it's right or wrong. Let's get in good trouble. My friend, Madam President, I yield the floor. Madam President, Madam President, thank you to the pages, thank you to the parliamentarian staff, thank you to the clerks, thank you to the doorkeepers. There are so many people that make this place special. I kept you up all night, kept you up 24 hours. I just want to say thank you. Thank you, everybody.
25 hours and 6 minutes. That's how long U.S. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey held the floor of the United States Senate.
Senator from Idaho.
Madam President, this next regular order of business, confirmation of Mr. Matthew Whitaker.
The vote that they're taking relates to the NATO ambassador. That's what Senator Booker was filibustering. 25 hours, 6 minutes. I'm sorry. 25 hours and 46 minutes. He broke the record at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. He stopped talking exactly at 8:06. At 8:06, guys, come on. What do we? That's the feed. There we go. 8:06 p.m. And as you see right there, Mustafa, Republicans, let's go right ahead, move forward the nomination of Matt Whitaker. But the key point is this here. People are going to be talking about this for a very long time. And this is the type, when you look at on social media, all platforms, the energy that is around the dialogue that people are having about the things that he talked about, that is why this was important.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Cory opened the eyes of a nation, right? He closed with John's quote about, redeeming the soul of America, which is really where we're at in this moment. And that's why energy is necessary to do the steps that are going to be critical to being able to not just heal this country, because we know that takes a huge amount of energy and it's going to take time because folks have always wanted to resist that. But in this particular moment, bringing forward all the egregious actions that this administration has currently done, but also helping people to understand that by coming together that we can make the progress that's necessary. That's who Cory is. And I'm proud of him because he reinfused some energy into a situation where folks often don't know where to go, don't know what to do, or are looking for someone to, sort of spark that match that gets folks who say that we are resistors moving in a positive direction. So now, each and every person who watched that has a responsibility in this moment to get engaged. He talked about good trouble and necessary trouble. All of us have the ability to play a role in helping this country to move forward in a direction where no one gets left behind, and that we do the things that are necessary to address the evils of the past.
Full time, my apologies, was 25 hours, 5 minutes, and 30 seconds. And this is so, I don't particularly care for Frank Luntz, the Republican pollster. I don't care for him at all. But Larry, this was a tweet that he posted. He said, I just hosted a focus group of Democratic, go to my iPad. I just hosted a focus group of Democratic voters who are angry with Dem leadership in D.C. What Cory Booker is doing right now on the Senate floor is exactly what they want to hear. Democrats would be smart to get a transcript and copy it word for word.
Yeah, I saw that same tweet when Senator Booker was, on the Senate floor, and it's interesting, Roland, because there's been a disconnect between, D.C. leadership in the House and Senate and what a lot of millions of Americans want. And that's the point I made, discord, the fight, because there seems to be, there's a bit of the overall demeanor to be willing to step aside and let what we've seen happen over the last couple months happen with no pushback. And they're reminded there were tens of millions of Americans who didn't vote for Donald Trump. So there are people who are frustrated and want the Democratic Party to do more. And so hopefully what we see with Senator Booker tonight is, that kind of first step in terms of not just in the Senate, but in the House also. We've seen Congressman Crockett, Congressman AOC, among others, who have, Congressman Green, others, who have tried to disrupt systems. You cannot fight against, when you look at the history of authoritarian or some of the other challenges that other countries have encountered, you cannot fight against, these systems by simply stepping aside and saying, well, we're the minority, we can't do anything about it. Roland talked about the assassination of Dr. King, and if you look at the lessons we learned from the civil rights movement over those several decades, you saw that those individuals saw the moral clarity of what they were doing, but willing to weigh their lives on the line. So when I hear here's this conversation of some Republicans who are not willing to go against Elon Musk, among others, because they worry about someone will get primary, that's cowardice. From the Democrats and for those individuals, Republicans who believe what we're seeing is not consistent with democratic democracy, then you need to be willing to stand steadfast and to make sure that, whatever fair and equitable system we had, particularly when it comes to Black folks, that we continue to build on that and make sure the next generation of individuals, particularly Black and brown folks, have the rights they deserve based on the U.S. Constitution.
And what you also do is you don't let folks steamroll you. Congressman Glenn Ivey, former federal prosecutor, was on Will Cain's show on Fox News, and y'all know how Will Cain is an absolute lightweight. And I want to. This is the exchange, Joe, that I think you need to see more of. Watch this here.
To be dispassionate. I want to see the same passion from you on those issues of the crimes of illegal immigrants as you do for this error when it comes to illegal immigrants. That's what I hope for you, Congressman.
I prosecuted the crimes of illegal immigrants for 8 years. I locked up more people in my day than you ever did. So don't lecture me about not being passionate about prosecuting illegal immigrants to do something wrong.
No.
I've done it. You haven't. Back up.
Today, Congressman, you write the laws. Congressman, today,
my ISB is dying. I need to turn the speaker on.
In fact, I did a joint prosecution with Rod Rosenstein of MS-13 when he was the U.S. attorney and I was the state's attorney. I've done this before. You have not. Don't sit there and lecture me about being passionate about people who break the law. I've done it. You have not.
Congressman, I think you took that a little more personally than intended, but I think that what I'm talking about is not your past, but your present, where we apply passions today in our current jobs, not our former jobs. Congressman, I have to leave it here. I've gone way over time, and I'm always willing to do so. I appreciate the back and forth. You're welcome here anytime. Thank you so much.
All right, here's somebody who's a so-called lawyer. When the last time you been in the courtroom, Will Cain? You took this a little more personal. No, hell no. You took a shot, and he smacked your punk ass back. That's what just happened there, Joe.
Sometimes you just got to get reminded of who folks are. And the Will Cains of the world don't always know. And when they don't, you have to remind them. You have to let them know that, listen, I forgot more about this than you know. What it is that you think you're talking about. You're talking about it hypothetically, checking with the Trump administration, getting talking points. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I've been doing this work. I know more about it than you do. I've seen it. I've seen every side of it. And this is where we are. So I think it is important that we fight back, that we let folks know that you guys, if DEI was a negative thing, as it's truly defined, they would be the DEI hires. Will Cain would be the DEI hire. He
absolutely. First of all, that even insults DEI hires.
Right, exactly. With the true definition of DEI, no, he wouldn't be that. But as they define it, somebody who comes up short and gets in the box anyway, no, that's him all day long, dressed up and dressed down, and he's not hard to knock over and spank. So hopefully people continue to spank these folks. Hit them right in the mouth, figuratively speaking, with what it is that's going on, what the real truth is that's going on. And meanwhile, at the same time, be the people that are fighting for folks. There's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of confusion out there. There's a lot of people that are seeing that their government, that Elon Musk or, the co-president and whoever else it is, they aren't doing the things that are helping people. They aren't doing things. There's no mandate to do this. There's no mandate to threaten somebody's Social Security, threaten to take somebody's job after 20, 25 years that they were supposed to have a property right in. There's no mandate for any of this stuff. And so hopefully we, with both words and action, can be on the right side of this so people coalesce. Because what's going to make this thing change is people coalescing and saying, this is not something that we are going to stand for. It's not going to happen. And if we are on that side consistently in words and action, then we'll be where we need to be.
I got to play this here. Representative Sidney Kamlager Dove, of course, she was on our show last week. You want to call out somebody who is testifying? This is how you do it.
Majority is relitigating a made-up conspiracy theory about a part of the State Department that no longer exists to distract from the dumpster fire foreign policy this administration is pursuing and elevating a serial sexual harasser as their star witness in the process. Mr. Chair, I request unanimous consent to enter into the record 2 articles about the Republican witness Matt Taibbi. The first is a Chicago Reader article entitled, 20 years ago in Moscow, Matt Taibbi was a misogynist a-hole and possibly worse, and a Washington Post article titled, The 2 Expat Bros Who Terrorized Women Correspondents in Moscow.
Without objection.
This hearing could not be more out of touch with the concerns of everyday Americans. People's retirement savings are being decimated as Trump's arbitrary temper tariffs tank the stock market. They are staring down the barrel of cuts to their Social Security and Medicare because the Republican majority wants to give a tax break to billionaires like Elon Musk, who have deep financial ties to our adversaries. Meanwhile, Trump is siding with Putin against our national security interests and risking the lives of American soldiers in a Signal group chat. I've been to the State Department, and I do have concerns about censorship of the employees who are terrified to say the wrong thing, to say anything, or have the wrong word in their job title and be terminated by an administration that publicly relishes punishing people for their speech. If
you're going to swing, Mustafa.
Yeah, that's for real right there. She was swinging for the fence, right? You know, it's interesting. She kind of laid out CVS receipts right there. You know how long a damn CVS receipt is? It just keeps going and going and going. She hit them with facts. And she just made sure she really highlighted the important points to bring forward exactly what's going on. Whether it's witnesses are coming forward or also these sets of actions that are happening throughout this administration by folks who are unqualified to hold the seats that they do. You gotta, what did Michelle say? When they go low, we go high. That doesn't work in this moment. Folks have got to do some neck checking on individuals whom that's the only thing that they seem to actually respect.
Before we sign off, Tennille, his name is Daniel Chanian. He's with Bolts Mag. They do covering lots of local elections. This is what he said about the Florida 1 race. We've had the candidates on this show. Says GOP will win Florida 1, but Democrats are in for a huge overperformance, largely much bigger swing than Florida 6. Florida 1 is even redder than Florida 6. Trump won by 37%. Right now, GOP is up 5.5% with 75% of the vote in. Margin will still increase some as Election Day continues to come in. This is why this is important. We also, of course, will be looking at what happens out of Wisconsin. This is really important. Because this was what he posted about 49 minutes ago. Randy Fine is on track to defend Florida 6, though a dramatically diminished win in counties that are almost done counting. Fine's lead is 15 to 20 percentage points under Trump's margin from November, but Trump won by 30% overall, so this is enough for Fine. He says the GOP's underperformance in Florida is in line with the shocking losses in the Iowa and Pennsylvania legislative special elections in January and March. Those legislative districts were very red too, less so than Florida's plus 30% Trump margin. AP has called Florida 6 for Randy Fine. And here's the deal. You see this Republican says a win is a win. You got your guy still lost. But the reality is you're able to take something away from this, Larry. You're there in Florida. And if you talk about this level of underperformance, it should say several things to Democrats. First, this is why you have to run strong candidates. This is why you got to knock on every single door. You are guaranteed to lose if you never campaign.
Yeah, the fight, it has to continue. And, you know, Roland, it's interesting. I was on a local platform talking about these two elections today in the 1st and 6th district. And I believe that, as we're going to see, both the Republicans will win those seats. But the question was the underperformance compared to, President Trump's numbers from just a few months ago. And so what you're seeing it play out, you talked about the Pennsylvania State Senate switch that happened last week. And so if this continues to happen, we'll see what's happening in St. Louis next week in terms of what kind of trends you're seeing in terms of, are members of the Democratic Party being activated. And they're really thinking is rolling about the 1st and 6th district. It sounds like quite a few Republican and swing voters switched to, support the Democrat. So I think that's really interesting as we look at some of the numbers from the 1st and 6th district, is to see how many Republicans decided, and it sounds like quite a few, decided they weren't going to vote Republican for both special elections. And once again, can we see this trend continue to play out up until 2026? We have the governor's race, obviously congressional seats, et cetera. So can the Democratic Party seize on this opportunity, this momentum in states like Florida, which obviously is the nation's 3rd largest, and nationally, and using the energy from Senator Booker's, spending that much time on the Senate floor, can you use that energy and focus on specific policy issues, Social Security, Medicare, people's health insurance, et cetera? Can you seize the opportunity to galvanize, have a consistent message, and then flip some of these seats?
The last thing I want to make here is this right here, and this is the thing, again, when you try to operate by norms, Mustafa. Schumer told Booker, this was reported, Schumer breaking news to Booker on Senate floor, the Republicans are planning to sidestep parliamentarian on current policy. They don't care anymore about norms, about rules, and even about going nuclear. Booker says it's further breaking of the Senate. Next time around, there's no going back now. Remember when Democrats controlled it and the parliamentary issued a ruling, Mustafa? They were like, well, the parliamentary has ruled. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The parliamentarians' ruling, you don't have to abide by. Republicans don't give a damn. Democrats are going to have to get a backbone, and if they ever assume control of the House or the Senate and get the White House back, I'm sorry, you must operate like you're a gangster and say power means we won, we control, and we're going to use it. The Republicans don't care. Democrats had better get some backbone and learn how to use power to their own advantage.
Yeah, they got to flex. I mean, when you don't, you've got these individuals that when they're in power, they do whatever they want to do, how they want to do it, and they dare you to do anything about it. So Democrats got to decide if they want to actually operate in the 21st century or if they want to continue to operate, back in the 20th and 19th century, around parliamentary procedure and all these other types of things that had, it had its place in that time. But, you got to be able to step up with what is required in the moment that you are operating in, the time that you are living in, and also understanding that there are a lot of folks across the country who want you to actually fight for them and to do everything that you possibly can to protect their lives, to make their lives better, to protect the next sets of generations. And that means that, you've got to push the envelope. And as I said in the beginning, you got to flex on folks.
And that's why I say it for the next Democratic presidential candidate when they ask, well, are you going to release your college transcripts? No. Your health records? No. Your taxes? No. Are you going to put your investments in a blind trust? No. Because clearly the media and America said it's fine for Trump to do it. I wouldn't play by any of those so-called damn rules. This is how you begin to operate. Mustafa, Larry, as well as Joe, I appreciate y'all being on today's show. Thank you so very much. We normally get to lots more topics, but of course we were covering the breaking news of Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey setting the United States Senate record for holding the floor of the Senate in a filibuster, breaking the record of the racist segregationist from South Carolina, Strom Thurmond. He no longer holds that record. It is now Senator Cory Booker, 25 hours. 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Folks, we want to thank all of you for joining us. Also, what we're going to do here on the Black Star Network, we're going to restream all 25 hours, 5 minutes and 30 seconds as well. And so we're going to be doing that. And so great job there. And you have to keep up the fight. You must keep up the fight. Speaking of that, folks, that's what we do here every single day with this show, with the work that we do. If you want to, so a couple of things. First, if you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, we want you to contribute to our Bring the Funk fan club by, of course, goals to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. Listen, 6 weeks ago, when I went to the mailbox, there were some 386 checks and money orders in the mail. When I went 2 weeks ago, it was 512. I'll be back. I go every 3 weeks, and so I'll be back at the post office. If you send a check or money order, please be patient because it's a process we have to go through. We have to open every single envelope. We have to catalog every person's name so we can add your name to the list. We then have to actually sign the back of every check and money order. And then we must separate the money orders as well before we send off to the bank. So just be patient. We got the check. We just got to actually just go through a process. But if you don't want to use checks or money orders, you want to make it a lot easier, Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. This is the QR code right here. This is the Stripe QR code. If you want to use a credit card, you can also use the Stripe QR code as well. Click the Cash App button to continue to contribute. If you send a check or a money order, do me a favor. You please make it out to Roland Martin Unfiltered. A lot of people put Roland Martin. A lot of people put Black Star Network. Please make it Roland Martin Unfiltered. It makes it a lot easier when we're trying to sort it with the bank because that way it's not going to all kinds of different bank accounts. Because we have we're set up different ways as y'all, but it's a lot easier if every check and every money order is Roland Martin Unfiltered. You can send that to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. When you give to PayPal, you see New Vision Media. That's the parent company of all of our different companies. And so don't be alarmed. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Get the audio version I read on Audible. You can also, of course, you can get your Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag, T-shirts, mugs, hoodies, wall art, all that stuff. Go to rolandmartin.creator-spring.com or go to the Black Star Network. QR code is there as well. Get your shirt. Don't blame me. I voted for the black woman. If you want to download the app Fanbase, please do so. If you want to invest in their crowdfunding, $11 million has been raised. The goal is $17 million. Go to startengine.com/fanbase. And folks, April 11th, we will be traveling to Raleigh, North Carolina. We want to see folks in Raleigh turn out. And guess what? If you're an HBCU supporter and you didn't go to St. Augustine's, that's fine. The town hall will be focusing on all of the issues happening at St. Augustine's. If you are a student, if you are an alumnus, if you are faculty, staff, we want you to come out. If you're a concerned citizen, please come out to Martin Street Baptist Church in their fellowship hall. Doors open at 5 p.m. We're going to be broadcasting live all 2 hours, focusing on what's happening there. It's a lot going on in the capital city. Listen, there's a lot of land the university has. People want to get their hands on that land, and a lot of people are demanding answers in terms of how money is being spent and how do we save how do we save our HBCUs, but how do we also have strong leadership who knows what they're doing? So lots we're going to be talking about when we go to Raleigh on April 11th. Folks, that is it. I appreciate all of you for watching today's show. Thank you so very much. We'll see y'all tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. April Fools, but we just cover the fools who sit in the Oval Office. Holla!
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?